Sure, but I wonder if that's, where is.
I think that's where experimental messages.
Okay, yeah, can you all hear us right now? Okay, I guess we're good. Yeah. All right, I think we were on the opposed votes. Did anyone opposed to attend this nomination as vice chair?
It'll be very hard.
Okay, any secretary?
It's actually officer at large.
I'm so brain dead. I see not.
I heard secretary.
I heard she said officer.
Officer.
The third position is officer at large. I'm actually the recording secretary.
I'll put my name in that. This is John Kabicki.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
So the officer at large is John Kabicki,
Yeah.
Yep.
confirming? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. So next up, we have the declaration of vacancies, review of attendance and declaration of vacancies. And I will get it pulled up really quickly, just. Okay, so I always have trouble interpreting this, but obviously the key is, why for in attendance and for not. I'll just pull them all up.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, oh, it isn't a chair. Can you all see the, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So it says I'm sharing that. Oh, maybe I need to make. Stop. Okay. There we go. It just wasn't working. Sorry. Okay, so I'm having trouble zooming in now, but in a nutshell, the red cells indicate an unexcused absence. And the rules as we currently have them, if a member is absent for 3 consecutive BPAC meetings, then the committee can declare vacancy. So looking at it right now, we only have 2 people who missed 3 meetings consecutively without it being excused, and so that would be Faye Miller, who I've tried to contact with little luck, and then Martin, but we've also had difficulty getting in touch with. I can't remember, Jim, you were looking into that for a while, right?
Yeah, he's fallen out of touch with the people at the well-built bikes where he was working. I checked in at City Bike and I couldn't get him through that either. I think he's around, but he's really hard to get in touch with.
He came to one meeting, right?
Say again?
He came to one meeting. Or he's going to some.
I think he was at a few.
Disco Bike.
Yeah, he was at a few. Well, it's really 4 in a row. So you have 2 vacancies.
Yes, and it's your choice whether you want to declare them vacant or not. So you could wait on both.
Well, you said you tried to reach them, right? And you haven't been able to.
That's right, yeah. I've been trying to get in contact with a good bit longer than Disco Mike. That is recent.
Then do we have other applications? Applicants?
I don't believe so, no. We've been asking around to try to get some new applicants.
Maybe just give them each 1 more month.
You can let them know that,
Let them know that we've had this report and that's this pending action.
Can we declare vacancies anytime during the year? Based on, yeah,
So, you can declare vacancies, Gail, or they said, correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe the vacancies have to be heard by the board with 2 hearings. So it is a little cumbersome process. It's a little easier to contact the person about it's about. We can then address it further, actually.
And if they wish to just resign, because they can't make it anymore, communicate that to them. If we get a hold of them. Right.
yeah, no, I'm trying to figure out, is there some advantage to declaring a vacancy tonight? That's really, you know.
This will be fast.
Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, this is Lisa Silva, longtime Livable Roadways liaison. So I've been through this a few more times than Ben, so I'll just offer up my historical expertise. It's much easier to do it today because January is when we clean up the roster, and staff's recommendation is to declare them vacant. There is no problem or required action if these people come back to participating. They can just step right into that position and then it's unvacant. It's just easier for our record keeping and quorums, et cetera, to just clean up the roster and have them vacant right now. And then also, if the BPAC so chooses, if a new applicant is in the records or gets submitted, then you guys can consider placing that person into the vacancy. Otherwise, this is an action item at a future meeting and takes time off your agenda just for administrative stuff unnecessarily. And then to put someone in does not require 2 readings of the bylaws. It's only if you change the makeup of the committee do you have to change your bylaws and reflect that. But just declaring something vacant or replacing someone does not.
Do we have standing vacancies also presently?
Yes, we have Peter Davitt's position is vacant. And
And Jim?
I'm vacant.
So if a new person came forward, we wouldn't necessarily have to wait till the vacancy passed through the board to bring them on.
Right. Vacancies do
Okay.
not go to the board. It's just an action of the committee. So you can just make a motion to accept someone to the new position. The existing
But the-
filling.
but the
And Livable
vacancy-
Roadways has had vacancies for years for positions that are awkward or hard to fill or, are no longer relevant.
Right,
So it's not a problem.
the action of declaring it vacant for non-attendance does have to go through the board, and that takes
No.
time.
No, it
no.
does not. No.
That thing goes through the board unless you change the composition of your
Okay.
BPAC and like propose a new member of some type, then they have to agree with you. And that's not being proposed tonight.
But if we don't declare it vacant, then it's still going to count against us to try and get a quorum next month. That's an absentee, the percentage.
Yes
whatever.
and no, and then it's yes and no,
Or the
and it's
other number.
awkward for Gail and Ben, so just leave them, like, it's just weird, so it's just more streamlined to declare it vacant, which it is really, because no one is attending currently. Technically, during COVID, you guys changed your bylaws to reflect that 9 is quorum physically present in the room instead of 51%, so it's not as awkward to not have the vacancies, but it's just cleaner and easier for our record keeping to do that.
But we could communicate to them that they'd be welcome back if they choose to. And
Correct.
we could vote them back on with ease.
Yeah, you could go further. I mean, we could move to have these 2 seats, Faye Miller and Mark Santiago's declared vacant. And we can also request Ben send a note, one last note saying the board or the BPAC has declared your seat vacant. You are always welcome to reapply. That would be my motion.
I would second that motion. That was
Jonathan Forbes with the motion.
Jonathan Forbes with the motion.
Chris Bellin.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Please say nay. Okay, Gail, did you get that motion as Jonathan described?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
And thank you, Lisa, for the guidance.
Yes.
Okay, Ben, do you have anything else for us?
No problem.
Then, so we can go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, a status report from Hart about their transit development plan 2025-2034, our progress report. So is it, I take it Justin Willis is going to be presenting that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you.
All right, great. My name is Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling at the Hillsborough Transit Authority, and this is our transit development plan. Next slide. So I usually go through this as if all of you are brand new and have never seen it, so I apologize in advance to those who have been through this before, but here we go. So TDP is our multi-year financial and operating plan for our transit agency. FDOT requires transit providers receiving state funding to develop and adopt a TDP. We did a major update, which are required every 5 years back in 2022. And now we are doing what we call APRs, annual progress reports, in between years as we get ready for another major update in a couple years from now. Next slide. The TDP rule is the legislative kind of directive that tells us we need to do this. We highlight past year's accomplishments, analyze discrepancies between the plan and implementation for the past year, and steps taken to attain the original goals and objectives. We identify any revisions and revise the implementation program for the 10th year, which is like the new year of the TDP. And then we add recommendations for that year in the updated plan. And we revise the financial plan and a revised list of projects or services that are needed to meet the goals and objectives. Next slide. A couple of changes this year. The submittal date was changed from September to March, which is much better for us. A lot of agencies requested delays in the submission to align better with our fiscal year and budgeting process. So this is a big help for us. And it requires some enhanced collaboration with the TPO, which we usually do anyway, but this presentation is part of that collaboration. And then we're waiting on some updated rule guidance from FDOT that's still being developed. Next slide. So our funded needs right now, maintaining existing service, kind of status quo, not exactly where we want to be, but I'll talk more about that as we move through the presentation. Some short-term frequency improvements are funded on a few key routes in the system to get them back to pre-COVID levels. Next slide. Some additional funded projects this year you may have heard about the Route 1 Fare Free pilot that is active right now on the Florida Avenue corridor from downtown Whiting Street streetcar station all the way north to Fletcher and the University Transit Center. And the streetcar circulator was added last year, but we are going to remove that. The city of Tampa has revoked its funding commitment to that circulator. So kind of not going to elaborate on that, but 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's kind of the story there. Next slide. So our funded needs, partially funded the heavy maintenance facility. We just received a raise grant from the federal government for 23 million and change. So that funds phase 1 of the heavy maintenance facility, but we still have over $100 million worth of the actual maintenance facility structure itself that we'll be pursuing in the next few years. Our bus replacements, that's ongoing. We need to replace about 10 to 15% of the fleet every year to maintain a maintenance cycle for good state of repair. Same for paratransit vans, the streetcar, and our CAT AVL system is basically the computer-aided dispatch automatic vehicle locator system. We're coordinating with Hillsborough County to get on their radio system and updating all of our real-time software that is a pretty archaic 2007 system. And we're super excited that's going to be coming online in the next 16 to 20 months. Next slide. So our unfunded needs list, as you all probably know, is quite extensive. We need frequency improvements, new local and express buses and on-demand services, rapid transit corridors, the Tico streetcar extension, and then our capital needs are super significant. The top priority being the heavy maintenance facility, streetcar vehicle replacements. The existing fleet is aging quite a bit, the historic replica cars, and then a number of facility related and other capital needs. Next slide. So to just identify those transit needs in the service department for frequency, we're trying to get back to pre-COVID service levels. A lot of that is cost increase have hit us just as much as everybody else with inflationary pressure and that sort of thing. So getting back to these service levels requires a lot of new vehicles and additional service. To meet the same 15-minute headways on some of these routes requires more vehicles than it used to, because more traffic and just the nature of the business. It takes longer to get from one end of the county to the other, so it takes more buses to maintain those headways. But we'd like to get back to 15-minute service on those 4 key corridors: Florida Avenue, 56th Street, Hillsborough Avenue, and Nebraska. 20-minute service, we'd like to get Bush Boulevard, Route 39, and Route 45 from the University area to West Shore. And then there's a bunch of routes that were previously 30 minutes that are now 60, and we'd like to get those back to 30 minutes, and then a couple of express routes we'd like to improve frequency on as well. Next slide. This was a slide a couple of our board members wanted us to prepare, but this kind of shows you where we've gone, and we're kind of perpetually on a fiscal cliff, given our only recurring dedicated funding source is a $500,000 property tax. So it's very subjective to property values and fluctuations in the real estate market. But before 2017, we had about 1,700 weekday revenue hours. And then before COVID, we had about 1,600 and 132 buses at our peak pullout on the weekday. And right now we're about 103 buses. So that's about 76% of our pre-COVID service. And to get back to that level, we need about 15 to 20 million annually for operating, and about 15 to 20 million in vehicle investments to get back 29 additional peak vehicles. And those routes you see there are identified. Those are the difference in frequency from now and pre-COVID. And then there's several discontinued routes on the pre-mission max column that are no longer in service. Next slide. Some of these premium services we're going to be reevaluating in the next few years. The most advanced project we have is the Tampa Arterial BRT, which is just a little over halfway down that list. The Tico streetcar extension is being pursued by the city of Tampa, and of course we're the operator. And a couple of these items are included, like the Cypress East-West is included in the city of Tampa's Regional Infrastructure Accelerator, where they're pursuing several different transit projects in the city and Hillsborough County, and some projects that are not determined yet. Next slide. A variety of express routes here. I won't read them off to you, but we can go to the next slide. And then some of these local services, the bolded ones are ones that had previously existed that were cut in Mission Max, which was a system redesign in 2017. Next slide. On-demand services are being evaluated right now in our comprehensive operations analysis, which will refine the bus network in the short term in the next kind of 1 to 5 years. But we'll be evaluating some of these areas that are growth areas, but not necessarily great for fixed route bus transit. Next slide. So our next steps are to submit the annual progress report to DOT, continue coordination with the TPO and DOT, and then stay up to date to look for that final rule guidance. Next slide. And that's it. I can take any questions.
Justin, this is Jonathan Forbes. I just had a question. I noted that there was not any commentary on Route 32 to the airport. Is there a reason why that wasn't included?
It's because it's operating at a weekday frequency of 30 minutes. So it's on our unfunded list to get more frequent than that. It's just not one of our highest priorities because it is at a frequency that's adequate for the existing ridership.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Justin, Dave Aylesworth, just a quick comment on my experience. I've written it twice now, and it's funny that it took making it free for it to get me to write it, because it's not the $2. I think it was an excuse to figure out, like, oh, I gotta do this. People are talking about it now, so I gotta do it. Second, it's not having this anxiety about not knowing how to pay, right? Like I don't, and so just knowing I can just get on Actually made me more comfortable. It's a great experience, both rides. And now I need to figure out how to pay so I can do other routes, but that's anyway, just some feedback from my experience.
Yeah, well, thanks for trying it. And we've got open payment, so you don't even need a fare card, just tap, just like everywhere else. So if you want to take the 32 to the airport, you can pay us $2.
Good to hear. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, anyone else? Any questions or comments for Justin?
This is Abigail in Hillsborough County. Can you tell us a little bit more on the collaboration with the county? Was it AIB or what was the system you're collaborating and what does it do for bus efficiency or service?
Oh, yeah, good question. So the CAT-EVL, the Computer Aided Dispatch and Automated Vehicle Location System, is basically the onboard technology that feeds the information into the Google RTS or real-time feed. Google GTFS RT is the real-time data. So when you open Google or Transit app or any real-time application, the information from our buses feeding those applications is what we are upgrading more or less, and the dispatch and controllers that work at the maintenance facility that radio to the bus drivers and communicate with them. So right now our 2007 system has a ping rate that's around 60 to 70 seconds, which is really slow. So there's a bit of delay in that real-time data. So what that means is if you see the bus is arriving in 2 minutes, you may get there in 2 minutes and you've missed it by one because that delay. That's one of the benefits of this system. The other is going to be rerouting bus trips because of a planned or unplanned detour because of a crash, for instance. That real-time information is going to be available to the passenger in Transit app and some of those software programs. But it's really just a major overhaul of and modernization of our data on board the vehicle and what the customer sees. And it's also combined with the radio upgrades so that ping rate is more frequent. We have better coverage. So it's a real great benefit. And I would just encourage you all to download the Transit app. We're transitioning from One Bus Away right now, which has been our platform for ages. But Transit app's coming online, and we are purchasing an agency-wide subscription so that all of the customers on Transit app will be able to upgrade to Royale for free. And your user experience will be night and day better than what it is in One Bus Away. And it's much more user-friendly, and it's very exciting because this new CAT-EVL will fold into that very nicely, and it's going to be a lot better service. And on-time performance should actually increase by 5 to 10% once this is fully implemented. And we're already doing a lot better. Recently, we're almost at our target at 77% on time the last few weeks.
What's the name of that app again, please, Justin?
It's Transit app, but I think you just look up Transit and it looks like a sideways S.
Got it.
Yeah, I have the app, and I will say it's a lot better. Very good. And it also does a great job of routing people for bike routes as well.
Transit, subway and bus lines, is that what it is?
Yeah, so it looks like it is. Yeah, the other one ate so much battery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, glad to hear. And look for that upgrade because it's like $25 a year. If we don't pay for it, but when the agency pays for the subscription, there are other features that you'll get with the Royale that otherwise wouldn't be there. So that's going to be a really cool benefit to the customers as well.
How are they planning to distribute that to give everyone access to it for free?
It will just be a pop-up in there as an automatic upgrade, and then you'll just click it and you'll be good to go. PSTA has the same thing across the bay. So if you're like a user and it identifies you as like living in Pinellas, you're already automatically going to get that. But for the Hillsborough folks, we don't get that benefit unless you live across the bay. Like one of our planners lives in Pinellas and already has that. So he's been testing it and seeing the benefits, but it'll just be a pop-up.
And then as you're using the app, it'll know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So Justin, I was kind of curious, do you know what percentage of riders is like county versus city as far as service. I mean, I heard some conversation from one of the county commissioners about trying to let the city of Tampa do its own sales tax thing and just whether or not that's a good idea.
Yeah, I won't comment on that. We definitely need more funding in general. But for our customers, the last time I had our team pull the analysis, it was about 50-50. It's usually slightly more in the city. Historically, it was probably 60% city, but I think recent changes in a lot of the development and in-migration to Tampa Bay, I think has probably pushed some of our historic, naturally occurring affordable housing and riders out of the city to a certain extent. So I think there's a little more balance than there used to be. But, the lines are, a lot of people don't know the lines very well, but as soon as you cross Fowler, you're in the unincorporated county, more or less, except for USF's campus. So there's a lot of our, it's more balanced than people expect. A lot of people think it's just all for the city, but I think it's gonna become probably a little bit more county, the way that some of the affordability crisis is going, but yeah, it's pretty well balanced, and it's about 2% or 1.5% Temple Terrace, which is actually almost exactly how many revenue hours of service they have, which is kind of just an interesting fact.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Anybody else?
Could we do a field trip to maybe have lunch and come back for those that are interested, like be from downtown, do a round trip
On the one? Say.
on the free service bus route?
Oh,
Justin, are you facilitating tours or?
I can join, but I would ask you guys to facilitate because we've had a lot of ride-alongs and press events, but I will participate. But if you want to hold, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help. I can probably connect you with our community engagement folks and that sort of thing. But we just want you to get out there and try it on your own and as a group and all of the above. So whatever we need to do to help.
Could throw that as a possibility for our July. Or July outing. Whatever we call it.
Yeah, it'd be neat to go take a ride on the one. Go up.
July's a long way away.
It is. Just putting ideas in.
Okay. All right.
Just trying to figure out.
Well,
Yeah, just let me know. I will join and I can try to facilitate as much as I can. But as you just saw, Livable Roadways wants the same thing. So we need to get the community on the bus as well as committee members. So we're happy to do whatever it takes. So this is the year.
as far as the route with the one and the intention behind that, I don't know how much you're, say, allowed to speak on that or anything, but is that being pursued in the hopes of dedicated right of way for like a BRT route on there?
Yeah, that's part of the motivation. So this was a request from City Council. Councilwoman Hurtak was the champion. Our chair, Councilman Vieira, the Heart Board chair, was very supportive as well. But yeah, that was her intention, is to just get more people exposed to bus transit, because that's, if we're going to make progress on transit here, it's going to be with bus service. I don't think we're going to build 10 light rail lines in the next decade or so, as much as I would love to see that. And then yes, the threshold for dedicating a lane for bus service, the goalposts have moved, for a lack of a better way to say that. Some legislation was passed last year that makes the bar very high for projected opening day ridership. So part of the motivation for this was to see if we could build some ridership on the corridor to position it for a BRT project in the future. So that was part of it. But just kind of showing people that we do have some really great bus service in Hillsborough County. We might be the most underfunded major metro area for transit, but we do have some really great service out there. And this is just really trying to get more exposure to one of our best corridors.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Yep, thank you.
All right, I think with that, we're good to move on. So we can go ahead and move on to the 2025 safety performance targets by Connor from TPO staff. Boy, brace yourself for some bad news, right?
Good afternoon, BPAC. I'm Connor Trips, McDonald, TPO staff. Here to present the 2025 safety performance targets. So many of you may be familiar from past years' presentations, but for those of you who aren't, performance measures are required by BPOs out of the MAP 21 legislation and reviewed under the BPAC Act. They create a streamlined performance-based multi-modal program to address the challenges facing the U.S. transportation system. There are currently 5 categories of targets. So safety is the first category, and then includes a pavement bridge condition, reliability, transit aspects. So within the safety performance targets, there are 7 metrics that we use. 5 of these are required, and then 2 are elected by the Hillsborough TPO. The 2 that are elected are the number of fatalities year by year, and motorcycle fatalities on the 5-year level. So some key definitions before I start. There's 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So total number of miles traveled by a motor vehicle in a region over a certain period of time. A serious or incapacitating injury for the purposes of this presentation. It's a significant injury that causes permanent damage or loss of bodily function. And non-motorized being a bicyclist or pedestrian. So this year we looked into some best practices or current trends in safety target setting. Goal driven, 16% of the respondents of this federal highway report responded that they're using goal driven approach, which is something along those lines would be setting a target at 0 for 2050, making increments to get there. Data driven is what I would categorize us to use. So they're based on expected outcomes given recent trends. And we used a 1% reduction rate. So that's calculated based on available funding, information zero category within the transportation improvement program and the long range strategy. And that 1% reduction rate is supported by FDOT. We do that each year, sure they're still on board, and by HART, and that's also noted as a federal highway best practice. So annual actual fatalities, we are significantly down from 2023 to 2024 from about 236 to 157, which is a 3% increase. So it's great news. And then applying a 1% reduction target still on that would make us both data driven, I believe a little more goal oriented as well. So it's a significant reduction, hopefully maintain that. But the recommended target is no more than. And I should also say that targets are in the legislation, they're required to be data driven and realistic. So we are, while we support Vision Zero, we are required to set a target that would be data driven. On a 5-year rolling average, we saw an increase for a number of years, we've seen a decrease recently, recommending a target of no more than 200. Fatality rate for 100 million miles traveled. Here we're recommending a target of no more than 1. Motorcycle fatalities have been inconsistent over the past few years. We did see an increase this year. And then with the 5-year rolling average and a 1% reduction rate, recommending a target of no more than 4. Annual serious injuries on a 5-year rolling average see a steady decrease over the last decade or so, recommending a target of no more than 900. Serious injury rate, similar to the serious injuries, recommending a target of no more than 6.22. Non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, which I know this committee would be more interested in others. We have seen a reduction recently, despite the increase from 2015 to about 2019. So recommending a target of no more than 236. So the report card, this you can see the targets that we set in 2024 on that second column. And then the actual amount will be resulted in 2024. So we met 5 of the 7 targets we set last year, and the 2 that we did not meet being motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries. So some context, from 2023 and 2024, we saw a 33% decrease. Pinellas saw a 17% decrease. The Metro Plan Orlando and field planning area saw a 23% decrease. The Broward, a 1% increase. And I believe overall, the state is seeing a slight increase as well. So we did reach out to FDOT reporting agencies, the data that was from Signal 4, just to make sure there's no reporting differences that would account for such a decrease in the law enforcement. Furthermore, they did not identify any changes in the reporting. So some takeaways, fatalities significantly decreased in calendar year 2024, and motorcycle fatalities and overall serious injury targets were not met. So what can we do? The MPO and local government toolbox can design and prioritize safety projects and CIPs. We continue to program safety studies in our BPWP, which is essentially our 2-year, I like to refer to as a scope that the team of staff works on. We can specifically program a motorcycle safety study in there as you comes up for reprogram. And in the tip, we can continue to prioritize safety projects that will lower cost and will shovel. The report card again, you can see those recommended targets all together on the British column to the right. I also pulled some statistics that might be interesting to the committee related to non-motorized. So with pedestrian crashes, 20% were fatal or incapacitating bicyclists, crashes with a bicyclist, 10% were fatal or incapacitating, and overall crashes with vehicles overall was 2%. So that's overall 2%, bicyclists 10%, pedestrian 20%. Within non-motorized crashes, 69% happened in the daylight, 43% were intersection related, 8% were driveway related, and 35% were non-junction, meaning straight for the road.
Do you have a slide for that? It's not advancing the.
Right, I just pulled this like an hour ago, but I can certainly share.
How did you say that fatal crashes changed from last year for ped and bike?
So ped and bike specifically, so rolling average, I'm not sure what the exact number would be. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a decrease. And our last slide is just any comments or questions that you haven't taken.
Yep.
Okay. Connor, thank you for doing that. This is Jonathan Forbes. I think I don't like going through these numbers every year and haven't done it for the last probably 8-9 years. It's always a hard conversation to have. So I think it behooves this committee to reinforce that 0 fatalities are the acceptable amount. But my question would be, or is there more of a comment, is I know you said that there is, FDOT recommends a 1% reduction annually. Can we stray from that and maybe go 25, 30, 40% reduction annually and get to the point where we need to be and want to be in a matter of a short time while these projects are going?
So the 1% reduction rate is actually our methodology, specific to Hillsborough TPO. So we don't actually pull that. It's not recommended by, or it's not recommended, but it's not a recommendation that comes from FDOT. I don't have a recognized as the best practice, so we do like to continue that, but certainly we can identify what other fields are doing and kind of look into best practices and see what opportunities we have to do.
Yeah, thank you. My point is just simply it may be a best practice, but we want the absolute practice would be none. And I don't think 1% is going to get us to where we feel we need to be.
And
Certainly considering what's possible. I mean, we just had a 33% reduction. Like that's huge. I've never seen that level of good news in one of these reports, so it's nice to see. John?
John Kubicki. I was just going to note, Signal 4, if you want to get into more of the semantics of it and things like that, I can talk for a while on it. But do be careful of using December of 2024 data, just because there's a lag in the crash reporting. And so just kind of keep that in mind that some of those numbers could be related to, they're just not quite into the system yet.
That is correct. So when we pull these numbers, I think I put them into December to prepare for some earlier committees this month. I think the most recent full month was October. So what we do is we average what we see in October and apply that to November. Okay. Usually we're pretty accurate, but things can happen.
Correct. Yep.
State facility.
Oh, go ahead, Gail.
Abigail, Flores, Hillsborough County. So, glad that we're setting some targets. So how does the TPO, what are some strategies that the TPO will use to achieve that reduction? Right? So can you share some strategies?
Yes. So of course, we're not an implementing agency as far as construction. So what we have in our toolbox is really these documents. So of course, we'll encourage jurisdictions like Hillsborough County to prioritize safety projects and then the UPWP and TIM, and then from the LRT as well. But besides those, our board this month, they requested more information, just a little deeper dive into between this, see what these trends are, see if there's what's contributing to a reduction. Of course, it's difficult to say any one thing would have account for a 33% decrease from one year to another. But we'll definitely, that is what we're looking into with the board. So I can provide that information.
My guess would be an increase in congestion.
Yeah.
Traffic, my observation, been worse. But, slower speeds is safer.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting point if you don't mind me just bringing it up. You can see these fatality, this is the running average, right? 2019 and 2023, so COVID in there really saw the highest amounts. So that's exactly to your point, right? It's COVID, we saw less congestion, so there are higher speeds on roadways, which led unfortunately to more serious crashes. So as we see congestion rise again, hopefully we'll see these crashes reduce.
I think I recall that in one of these recent ones, there was a thing where it looked great that this serious injuries went down, but the reason for that was probably because the balance of fatalities to serious injuries shifted, probably because of that speed increase. So it looked like, oh yeah, the injuries went down, but we're actually, of the people getting in crashes, more of them were dying. And it looks like this year that's kind of flipped, where the injuries are back up and fatalities are down. So in a way, I don't want to say more injuries is good, but it's better than what had been previous situation. The proportion of in crashes that are fatal as opposed to serious incapacitating has shifted back in favor. So maybe fewer people are dying, which is step which has to reduce the total number of crashes. I have another question. Both this and the previous presentation about the hardboard, these are just status reports, and both of these went to the board last month and have already been accepted or approved, and we don't need action.
That's correct for this presentation.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the hardboard. Okay. That is true for this presentation, but we did adopt this.
So we don't need to do anything with it. We're just.
That's correct.
Jacob Brunel, similar to the Vision Zero reporting, where they map out the high risk roads, kind of like the high, the moderate, the low. Do you do any, annual or average reporting regarding data mapping for specific areas?
That is something that the board requested, and that in that list. So we will be looking at a geographic analysis, for instance, seeing which roadways are maybe possible.
Awesome. One more thing and kind of transitioning from that, I guess it's still data that they might be requesting. I guess, well, on an annual basis, do you extract data in terms of, March, spring break, Fourth of July, or any other major holiday and look at where those potential spikes are?
That's a great point. I haven't looked at holidays related to crashes, but I can certainly search. As a side note, I know that particular matter is up on Fourth of July, which is fireworks.
Yeah.
All right, well, hearing no other comments or questions for Connor, we appreciate you coming in, giving us this update, giving us this good news, quite frankly. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, so with that, we can go on to old business and new business. I can see how we're doing on time, 6:30. So I can kind of briefly give some updates from the city of Tampa. I know that this morning, we had a press conference for the Green Spine extension that goes up into along Ybor and into BM Ybor up to Cascaden Park there. Yep. So that was kind of exciting thing. It should be done and with construction by the end of the year and open. Yeah, I mean, a lot of other projects going on that have been
There's
well.
also been coverage of the west bank of the Hillsborough River, the trail along the.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, the West River Build project. Yeah, that's 5 miles of pretty much the West River Walk, if you will, and then also some facilities on Rome Avenue. I mean, we literally had a meeting today that lasted 2 hours where all of the project managers and all the engineers listed off every single project that the city's working on and what its current status is. So if there's anything, any one project or question you guys have, I certainly could probably answer it. But it's also like, just want to let you guys know I'm a resource, for different things the city is doing. But obviously they're kind of too numerous to list here. One thing that is upcoming I mentioned previously is McDill Avenue from Kennedy to Columbus. They're having a public meeting coming up on, I believe, February 22nd or something like that. But if you're interested in going to that and attending that, then, reach out to me and I'll send you the information. That was one that we mentioned before. That was for a safety project to go from 4 lanes undivided to 3 lanes with a 2-way left turn lane. Yeah, other items, just let me know, or if you guys have questions, you can certainly use this time for that as well. John?
What was the resolution on Swan? I know the little bike lane.
Oh, yeah, it's just parking, there's bike lane in one direction and parking, and then 2 travel lanes, and that's how it's, gonna be.
Yeah, and I noticed the markings, wet weather and nighttime.
Yeah.
How you paint it over and things.
Right, so we got a water blaster, or in the process of procuring a water blaster to actually remove them, because, they painted black over, which, no.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we do have a water blaster, and the intention there is to properly remove them.
Hey, Tim, do you have an update on the 19th Street Greenway project?
Yeah, 19th Street Greenway project that I signed and sealed that last week. So that's going through. That's one of the projects I've done. And we're just in a matter of procuring materials. Finding that the bureaucracy to purchase, say, 60K worth of bolt down speed humps is kind of onerous. So that's where it's at now, but we should, have it done by end of the year. And then the RFB crossing at McDill and Gray Street is still underway. I know that was one that was requested by this group at one time. So that's all I have for you guys there. And then I can turn it over to Chris and really Abigail as well for any updates with the county or discussion we want to have there.
Can't remember what we mentioned last, I guess our last meeting was never covered. But with the passage of the community investment tax, there were trails that were identified as approved for funding out of that, with a rough budget of $66 million. So we should be moving forward on a lot of trail projects. I think there were 11 or 12 specific projects identified in that. So that's great news. We are going to kick off hopefully next week an alignment study for the South Coast Greenway Palm River segment, which would go from the north side of the bypass canal at bridge.
So that funky bridge there,
Yeah,
just east of,
The Maydell.
Maydell, yes, the Maydell Bridge, which does have a trail, was replaced a few years ago and has a trail deck on it already. So to go from there down to, I guess it's Madison Avenue, through the Palm River community, the kind of provisional alignment we've had is to kind of follow Maydell about halfway through and then kind of snake through some other street corridors, but we'll be looking at several alternatives. And have submitted for budget funding for next year to do hopefully a follow-on full PD&E study for that as well. So that one should be moving forward. I think I mentioned this last year when it finally got to FDOT, but the US bike route that we had helped coordinate through the northeast corner of the county did get finally advanced to FDOT and then sent to AASHTO, and it was accepted. So if you look on Adventure Cycling now, there is a bike route number 15 through the whole west side of the state of Florida, and part of that passes through the county. So that's nice to see something that we worked on actually come to fruition. And else, that's kind of, those are the highlights right now.
Yeah, we're excited to kind of see those trail projects take off and continue to move forward. So
I'm going to be busy. I don't know what else gets going.
all right.
Yep. Quick question, Jacob Brunel, in regards to that project list, I'm sure it's very extensive, but is there any news on the Upper Tampa Bay Trail? I know the bridge closed down about 2 years ago. And then the hurricanes just washed everything away. I mean, I think it cut like 10 miles down to 4 or 5.
Yeah, I asked about that and I didn't get the full detail, and I'd forgotten about the washout area, which I think was south of Waters. The bridge is still closed, so you can kind of go up to that trailhead at Wilski, but you can't get across there. And then, I mean, you can come south of Citrus Park, but you'll hit a dead end. And I haven't gotten a recent update on that, but the intention was to, pull that had been planned before the bridge was condemned. So that project did get advanced by about a year, and they're working assiduously on it. I don't have an immediate update. Hopefully I'll get one soon, and I can relate news to Ben to pass on an update on that. There were a bunch of trees down and stuff like that also after the hurricane. And I was told that at least the section between the north section from Van Dyke all the way up through the Suncoast Trail, leaving the county, that's all clear of debris things now. So that's fully open. I will need to check on the status of that washout area on Glover's. I don't know the exact status of that, but I'll fill that in on.
But the gap there is funded.
And the gap, it is not funded. It's funded for some, it is partially funded by the county. It's due to go to design. The design contract is kind of in the procurement process for ultimate approval by the board, but that's the next phase and that part is funded. I did submit for SunTrail funding for both that and the northernmost segment of the Tampa Bypass Canal Trail, which would be Fletcher to Bruceby Downs, as our SunTrail applications this year. And hopefully we've got some good news on that in a few months. There's funding to keep moving forward on the Upper Tampa Bay Trail, but not full funding.
Because they don't have a construction estimate anyways. You need that before they program.
Right. But
Construction. Okay.
that's
Great.
rough estimates. It would be $7-ish million, I think, mentioned off. That's still on our priority list for everything that we did. When we hit people up for money, that's our thinking.
All right, well, I think with that, we can adjourn the meeting unless anyone has anything else. All right. Meeting adjourned, and our new chair, David, will be leading us next time.
Past 2 years.
Yeah.